actually an award. If you look who she's just ahead of on that list, anybody know who Tim Cook is? CEO of Apple? Okay, so how does a 67-year-old woman get ahead of Tim Cook on one of the Fortune's, world's greatest 50 leaders list? Okay, by doing exactly what she's doing in this picture, picking up the phone and working for it. That's what she did. You talked to her. I had an opportunity to meet her at Carl's Tampa Wake Up Call. Had a nice dinner, and I mean, she's just the sweetest person you'll ever meet. You ask her, what was the key to her success? What did she do? And she will just tell you flat out, I don't know. I was just doing my job. And so that's what she did. She picked up the phone. She direct contracted with 17 different hospital systems in the state of Montana. She went through a pass-through PBM.